should be available on your Canvas. If I forgot to unlock it, I promise I will unlock it. Guys, here's the deal. We right now are on the home stretch. It's all downhill from here, as they say. You guys submitted your stock games, and by the way, we got a 100% submission rate on this. We didn't have any late submissions. Everybody got their document in on time. So I'm very grateful for that. I'm going to be grading them this week. But here's the trick. You're done in this class except for exams. You got an exam this week and you got an exam at final exam time. And the exam you're taking on Wednesday, which is not going to be a big deal, is on 4 chapters. I sent out the study guide over email last week. There's going to be bonus questions there. You're going to have an opportunity to do really, really well on this exam. But that's going to be Wednesday. Whatever we cover past Wednesday is what will be on the final exam. The final exam is not cumulative. It basically comes down to being a normal test. It's not going to be a big deal. You guys are going to be prepared. You're going to be fine on this. I do this intentionally because this is a 100 level class. It's not intended to be something that becomes really, really tough. It's something to give you a basis in all areas of business. That being said, guys, because we are hitting the home stretch, we're going to be hitting HR in Chapter 8. We're going to be hitting a little bit into accounting and finance as well, and a little bit into technology. That being said, guys, check this out. We have counting today, and Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes, we have a total of 8 experiences left together. What that means, guys, is we're going to make good use of time. We're going to have some fun as well because the pressure is off. Now, one of the things I do want to put out there for you guys, if there is a subject involved in the world of business that we have not covered, that you would like us to cover in class, please let me know. In addition, if you are interested in doing a 10-minute discussion at the beginning of class to facilitate some open discussion, time is running out. We might still have time for one of those, so hit me up. But if there's a particular topic you would like us to cover, please speak up or forever hold your peace, as they say. Has anybody ever been to a wedding where they say, if anyone knows why this union should not take place, speak up now or forever hold your peace? Have you guys ever heard that? I wonder, has anybody ever done that? It would be interesting to be at a wedding where somebody actually said, you know what? This guy is no good. He's a jerk. Don't marry this guy. So speak up or forever hold your peace. We're going to be starting off this chapter. They're giving you a warning. This is my specialty. HR is my field. I love this chapter. It's something I really enjoy talking about. So we'll be starting off today with an example, guys. In my old life, I used to work in technology. For about 19 years I worked in technology. One of the coolest projects I ever got to be involved in was installing video conferencing units for people who are deaf. How many of you are taking American Sign Language or plan on taking ASL? It's a cool language. By the way, do you know what language it's based on? No. American Sign Language is not based on English. It's based on another language. Anybody know what it is? The conjugation and the sentence structure is based on French. So many people who speak ASL as their primary language actually have very low literacy rates in English because they've learned how to read in French. It's English, but it's based on French types of conjugation. But I digress. We went to a PA Career Link, which these are sites where people can go in the state of Pennsylvania to get help finding a job. And we installed these video conferencing units so that people who were deaf could come into a Career Link, apply for a job, and get somebody who would come on the video as a sign language interpreter to allow them to be able to have an interview with a potential employer who didn't speak sign. It was a pretty neat idea to bring in an interpreter over video. They wanted to let the deaf community know all about this big project. How did the state of Pennsylvania advertise this service? Any guesses? Will knows because he's had this example in class before. Somebody, please give me a guess. How did they let people know about it? They did. They put it on the radio. Is there any problem with that scenario, guys? Most people who are deaf are not listening to the radio. And I say that with, I don't mean to make fun of anybody. I think it was done with good intention. I think it's like, we want to let everybody know about this program, but showing somebody how little you actually understand about their culture, what does something like that do? It gets people disengaged from the get-go. So that's why we talk about human resource management, guys. HR is one of the most important fields in the world. previous class, I said, guys, hey, if you're Henry Ford, or I'm sorry, if you're Bill Ford, what's different about making a truck in 2021 than 1973? What's different? There's tech everywhere, which means you got to be able to recruit the right people to be able to build your product. You got to be able to recruit the right people to design your product. You got to get people excited about coming to work and being engaged in work. But at the same time, you got to get the job done too. You've got this balancing act. Like, what are things? Actually, we're going to get you guys talking today. This side of the room, you guys are going to be happy. This side of the room is going to be unhappy. You guys, what makes you happy at work? What's something that would make you happy about working at a particular place? What makes everybody happy? Money. We want lots of money. What makes you guys unhappy at work? Lack of money. Hey, see, well played. Well played, by the way. What else makes you guys happy over here? We got money. Everybody likes money. Good shame. What else makes you guys? Yeah, what will make you happy at work? Working with people you enjoy working with, who are cooperative, a good workplace culture. What makes you guys unhappy at work? You got an answer up here in the first row. What will make you guys unhappy at work? People not following the rules. People not following the rules. One more. What's something that makes you guys happy at work? What's something that will make you excited about being at work? Free food. Google does that. You can eat whatever you want to Google. It'll charge you for anything. How about that? What makes you guys unhappy at work? What would make you unhappy at work? A strict boss. So we're talking about somebody who isn't fun or understanding or accommodating. Very good, guys. But it's a balancing act. Because if we pay the employees more, what do we have less for the company? We have less money for the company. If we pay people too much, we might not even be able to be profitable. The flip side, if we're not making people happy and motivated, they're going to show up and they're going to do it. Anybody here a fan of The Simpsons? Do I have any? This is one of my favorite Homer Simpson quotes. Now, Lisa, when you don't like your job, you don't call off sick. You just go in and do it really half-assed. And that's something we call presenteeism. And it's what you get when people are showing up but they're not bringing their whole self to work. And that's what you get when you have people who are unmotivated. So we're going to be talking about how the whole HR process works. Why do we recruit people? How do we recruit people? How do we get the right person for the job? Could it be that the right person is great for our company but is in the wrong position? How do we make sure that we're assessing how well somebody does? Why do we assess performance and how do we do so? How do we compensate people? Let's see what you guys know about this. If you don't have the right answer yet, it's okay. What's the difference between somebody who gets paid hourly and somebody who gets paid a salary? Somebody gets paid hourly, somebody gets a salary. Yes?
Someone gets paid hourly, like if they gotta leave for a doctor or a dentist appointment, they're losing that money. But if you get paid on a salary, then that's time off. You still get paid the same amount at the end of the year.
Great answer. So we have people who get paid a chunk of change no matter how many hours they work because they get a certain job done. And then we have people who get paid by the hour. It's an easy way to know how to pay people. So that's an example of compensation. We're going to talk about how we compensate people. We're also going to talk about labor unions, which is a hot topic. Oh, we'll see how many of you guys have been watching the news. A big company almost had its first union shop. A company that really has tried hard to keep unions out. What company am I talking about? You may have ordered something from them in the last week of your lives. It is Amazon, and the employees voted they didn't want a union. So that's something that's continuing as well. We're also going to be talking about what some of the trends are and the ways that people interact. So what is HR? HR is how we get people into a company, how we hire them, how we develop them. How many of you, by show of hands, you got it? We're going to be moving, guys. Think about this for the rest of the semester. Do you have any other assignments in this class? No. You have 2 tests, that's it. So you have no reason not to bring your energy into this class. You have no reason not to interact. And I want to see everybody interacting here in this class because we might as well make use of the 50 minutes we have together. So HR is the part of our company that finds the right people to accomplish the goals of the company and to evaluate how well they're doing. How good your HR is determines how good your staffing is. If you want to pull in the best and the brightest, you got to know what skills you need and what it takes to draw those people into your company. So this is how the whole chain works, guys. We start at the top. we start out, what is our strategy for our company? If your strategy is that you're going to be Walmart and that you're going to be a cost leader, you're going to be able to sell things really cheap, you need to find ways to efficiently hire people and probably not pay them very much. If you're Apple, however, you might be thinking all top dollar people because you want your new products to pop and sing. So what is your strategy? Where do you want your company to be? And where are you in the market? That drives everything else, guys. That drives the way we do our job analysis and our planning, the way we recruit people. And by the way, job analysis and planning. Who here can remember what was the problem? I'm sorry, I keep putting Stefan on the spot here. Why was Stefan's kitchen not as good as Subway for making sandwiches? It's not as efficient. It wasn't well designed. It's no offense to his kitchen. It wasn't designed to serve hundreds of people a day. So job analysis and job design is how you design that workstation. Then we get employee recruitment and selection. We get to training and development. By show of hands here, and let's be honest, how many of you are a little afraid, wow, when I get out in the workforce, I don't know if my resume and skills are going to be exactly what employers want. How many of you are a little afraid about that? Yeah, reasonably so. I want to put your mind at ease a little bit because when you read the job description, you know what that is? That's an online dating profile. Is the perfect person out there? No. We're putting out, we're in a perfect world. This is the person I want to marry. In reality, you're going to take somebody who checks the important boxes and you're going to hope that you grow into a life together. It's the same thing when we pull people into companies. We know we're going to train you. We're going to develop you. We're going to indoctrinate you into our culture. And by the way, I mentioned this earlier. Guys, from the time somebody's hired in a company, how long does it take till they really are integrated in the company? How many months? It's about 6 months. So that's a significant investment of time. And then what we have to look at too is compensation and benefits. How do we pay people? That gets us what we refer to as HR outcomes. And that means, are we retaining people? Are we keeping people satisfied? Are people staying with the company? And finally, we do have the question of retention versus turnover. Should I stay or should I go? As the old song from the Clash goes. Are we going to stick around or not? Here's a question for you guys. We'll see if you were paying attention in the first week of class. Guys, let's say every one of you, because you're all smart people in this class, let's say every one of you, your first job out of college, you got $100,000 for your salary. Wouldn't that be nice? $100,000 for your first job. And we're going to give you full benefits as well. What's your job actually worth to the company? How much is the company actually paying for you if they're paying you $100,000 and giving you benefits? What percentage on top of your salary do your benefits typically cost? You got a guess? Yes. Oh, you're close. You're real close. A little higher. A little higher. 30? It's between 25 and 30. You guys are both really close. What that means, guys, is if you're a $100,000 employee, in reality, you're a $130,000 employee. So we're budgeting for people. We got to think about those things. Here's the flip side, guys. I'm asking you to think about this when we get into our compensation. Let's think about what money actually means. And then we're going to get into some material. I need some help with the math on this one. All right, guys. Let's say, for example, our employer, we're a tough negotiator. We just got hired, and we're trying to get a higher salary. So we're saying, you know what? I want another $3,000 on top of what you're offering. Now, we're going to make it higher. We're going to make it $5,000. So we got $5,000 more dollars. Let's see what that actually means in terms of your take-home pay. Let's say you're all salary people. You got paid salary. How many times a month do most salary people get paid? Anybody know? It's usually twice a month. Let's do the math. I don't have a marker in here. Somebody stole my marker again, so I'm going to have to ask you guys to help me. Will somebody volunteer to help me with the math here? Pretty please. Yeah, okay, Nicole's going to help me. So we're going to get a $5,000 raise. Let's say, for example, right off the bat, we're going to lose 30% in taxes. So we take 5,000 times 0.3. What does that add up to? So $1,500. So our $5,000 raise just became a $3,500 raise. Well, that $3,500, if we're getting paid twice a month, let's divide $3,500 by 24. That's how many times we get paid a year. What do we get? So it comes down to $145 a pay when you get a $5,000 raise. Anybody a little disappointed? $5,000 sounds like a lot of money. Once you pay the taxes on it, it's not that much money. Why did I bring this up? Let's say, for example, Joe has a choice between two jobs. One is his dream job. He absolutely couldn't imagine not doing this job. And the other is an employer who's offering him $2,000 more to do a job he likes half as much. Is it worth it for the extra $2,000? Probably not. When you're just getting started, it's one thing. But that's what we're talking about. So we start off with strategies and goals. Guys, we talked about our mission statement. Oh, we're going to be walking around this classroom today. You guys are far too quiet. What is a mission statement? What the company's all about? Gold stars. So we got our mission statement. Driving what our company is all about. If you're working in HR, you've got to understand your own company. There are plenty of people who work in HR who do not understand their own company or their own people. How many of you are fans of the TV show The Office? Oh, The Office is fantastic. Michael, who's the HR guy? Toby. Yeah, Toby. Describe what he looks like when he walks into a scene.
He always looks depressed. I don't know, he just always looks depressed. Like he looks like he's gonna lay down a wall, and Michael just hates it.
And it's funny because your name's Michael, so if I showed up, you wouldn't be happy to see me at all.
I like Michael like when he left and then came back. Michael was really mad and came back.
Oh, yes. What did Michael Scott famously say about Toby, the HR guy? If I was in a room with Osama bin Laden, Hitler, and Toby had a gun with 2 bullets, I'd shoot Toby twice. That was his favorite quote about Toby. What that means, guys, is HR has a stereotype of being the people you don't want to see. Nobody ever says with enthusiasm, I got to go to the dentist. Nobody ever says, yay, I got called to the principal's office. And hardly anybody ever says, I got to go to see HR today. We need to change that stereotype because people in HR, in reality, are a very strategic part of companies. Guys, we talked about the goals and strategy, and that's where we start off. Your HR person, your HR department needs to be understanding where the company wants to go. Otherwise, how are we going to possibly help pull in the right resources to make our companies good and strong? And that's where all this stuff starts. Job analysis and forecasting. Guys, a job analysis means, what does it take to do the job? For example, let's say, I had a classroom observation. In a typical year, either Dr. Seidel or Dr. Fry would come in and watch me teach. They want to see how well I'm performing the job, but that's not the only reason. Let's say during my presentation, Dr. Fry sitting right next to Mario over there, he notices that every time I try to switch a slide, the projector shuts off. All of a sudden, is that my fault as an instructor that the projector's not working? No. So part of the job analysis might be, wow, this projector is making it harder for teachers to do their jobs. Or wow, every time Tonkin tries to walk across the room, he's running into a table. Maybe we have a bad layout for the way that this room is laid out. We talked about, for example, what is one of the most frustrating places on campus to try to get a drink? Downstairs. Oh my goodness. How many of you, by show of hands, have ever wanted just something to eat and the line is to the door? Yeah, that's not necessarily a problem with the people working there. It could be a problem with the fact that the drinks take a long time and maybe we need 2 lines, one for specialty drinks, one for everything else, or maybe even some self-service. That's an example of how you would do a job analysis. What you learn from that are what people need to do their jobs. And we're talking about KSAs, knowledge, skills, and abilities. What we do from that, guys, we create job specifications and job descriptions. I would write this down because it's not written on the slide. Job specifications are the actual skills that you need to be able to do the job. A job description is where we put them all in one place. So we have job specifications and job descriptions. And we have to change them from time to time. If you look at a job description from 1980 for somebody who's a teacher, they're probably never touching technology. Could you imagine in 2021 being in a college classroom with a teacher who did not understand technology at all? Maybe you are in a class where somebody doesn't understand technology at all. You'd be very frustrated. So we've got to change our job specifications and job descriptions over the years. And we also get into what we refer to as planning and forecasting. Well, we know what we need now, but what are we going to need in the future? If I have any, I promise not to put you on the spot here. I just want to see by show of hands. I'm not going to ask you a question. I just want to see if I have any of you in here. Do I have any marketing majors in here? Yeah, marketing is a great example. Let's think about it. If we go back even 20 years, if we're marketing, we're doing what we refer to as mass marketing. We're going to buy big television ads. We're going to buy billboards. We're going to buy all these things and hope that somebody gets our message. How are we as companies reaching consumers these days? How do we know how to reach people? How do we know what people like and are interested in? What do you think? What tells on us all the time? You got it, specifically. We got Instagram, we got Facebook, we got TikTok, we got, you pick your Snapchat, your social media du jour, whatever one you like. We have ways now that we can target people and know them better than ever. Somebody who was really good at reading Nielsen ratings 30 years ago about what people were watching on television, who knows jack squat about how analytics work in terms of social media, is not going to be an effective marketing person. So we've got to look toward the future. I guarantee if you're interested in marketing, what you want to be able to do is understand all of this stuff. And all of this gets even more difficult. In the last year, all of a sudden we froze hiring, we froze expansion, we weren't recruiting people anymore, and all of the things we did to engage people changed because everybody was working at home. This is right out of our text. I'm not going to read it to you. But the job description and specification, this whole thing together is a job description, but we can see that there are specific things that somebody needs to be able to do. They need to be able to work with managers. They need to be able, this was, by the way, for a college recruiter. You might have job specifications in terms of you might need a degree. You might need to be able to type so many words per minute. All of these things end up on a job description and job specification. It's a place to tell people what you need to be successful in this job. And guys, all of this ties together. We're going to stop for just a second because we're going hard and fast on this. Actually, let me make one other point. In terms of job descriptions and specifications, this is also a big opportunity to do the wrong thing. What do I mean by that? Many times in the working world, because we're going to be talking about the Americans with Disabilities Act and why that's so important. Sometimes employers unintentionally discriminate. Let me give you an example. Let's say that we were hiring a new person to be the dean's administrative assistant downstairs. How many of you have ever been in the dean's suite? Wow, nobody's ever visited Dr. Fry downstairs. Well, how many of you have ever been in a dentist's office? Yeah, we've all been to the dentist. That person who's sitting at the front desk, tell me some of the things they have to do. When you walk into the dentist, what do you have to do?
Greet people, greet it.
You got to greet people for sure. What else do you have to do? Think about it. When somebody walks in the dentist, what does that receptionist do? Help me out. We're going to do scheduling. We might be answering the telephone. We might be making appointments for the dentist. We might be managing the office or dealing with salespeople. Yeah, you might need to be able to type. You might need to be able to answer telephones and have a good conversational presence. You might be able to do all these things. Is there any realistic reason why somebody who's working in that position would regularly need to lift 50 or 100 pounds? Probably not. And here's where it gets into discrimination. If we put that requirement in a job description that ultimately has nothing to do with the job, could that preclude somebody who uses a wheelchair from applying for that job? Yeah. We've unintentionally discriminated at this point. It doesn't mean that everybody who puts that requirement in a job description is doing so out of malice. They're thinking, hey, maybe at some point we might need to lift something up. But what they are doing is thinking to themselves, wow, what do I do? What do I do in this situation to be more inclusive? And we're going to be talking more about that as well. Before we get into breaking this diagram down, though, because we've been going, holy crap, for 25 minutes here. Time's flying. Sitting here getting older every second. That's what happens. Sit here, you wake up one day and you realize, wow, man, half my life is behind me. Better make good use of the other half. That being said, it is true, you'll have that realization one day. Here's the way it'll happen. You'll be sitting in a coffee shop. You haven't thought about your own coolness for quite a while because you're pretty cool. Then a song comes on the radio or on the speakers inside the coffee shop, and you realize it's not considered oldies. It's a song you grew up with and loved. All of a sudden, you realize that there are more years behind you than ahead of you. And you stare into your coffee and realize, I will never be cool again. I better quit drinking so much caffeine. My heart could stop. It could stop any time. But then you drink the caffeine anyway because you realize you're in the prime of your life and you better make good use of it. And you play the odds and you continue. First question of the day, please. What would you like to know? I'm up here doing spoken word poetry. So if I could get just, what questions or comments would you like to ask or state? I would much rather hear from you guys. I got passion for HR, if you couldn't tell. I love this subject, but I would like to hear a question from somebody. Otherwise, I will randomly, I'm going to have a seat next to someone and ask them a very, very difficult question. Yes?
Within reason, what's something that's right now illegal, like sports gambling in some states, that you think should be considered legal?
Ooh, okay. I'm going to pause the mic for that one because it is a controversial state, so I should not be. By the way, I do want to make a comment on that, guys. I am recording on this one because this is not an opinion statement. This is a statement of fact. In the United States, there are some states, the most recent one being New York State, where recreational marijuana, cannabis, is legal. Let's say, for example, I apply for a job in New York State where cannabis is legal. And I'm asked as a condition of employment, I've been given a conditional offer of employment, and they said, it's time for you to take a drug screen. So I do. And the use of cannabis shows up on my drug screen. Can they choose not to hire me if it's legal in my state? Absolutely can. And do you know why?
Because it still impairs your workability.
That's a good point too. If it's something that using it actively could impair your ability, but there's an even bigger. That's a good observation. They can still choose not to hire me and be legally protected. Anybody know why? At the federal level, is marijuana still illegal? Yes. At the federal level, it is still illegal. You can choose as an employer in any state in the union to still back up the federal statute, and you are within your right not to hire somebody in that regard. Yes?
I don't get why it's illegal anyways.
I don't either. But I think it's mainly stigma. For example, people have stereotypes. When we think in the United States of stereotypes of people who use those products, we think of undesirables. We think of people who are in trouble or don't work. When in reality, there's a wide range of demographics of people who use those kinds of substances. I think it's based on stereotypes.
Like last summer, I worked at a dispensary because like it's legal in Canada. And like you'd be surprised how many like doctors, lawyers, like some of my like high school teachers would like be coming in. And like there's so much money to be made. I think Canada made like over like 5 billion or something since legalizing it or something crazy like that. And America is somewhere that only cares about money, so I'm surprised that they haven't done it yet.
Well, and what we're creating is basically a cash economy. Let's think about this, guys. If you're dealing in a substance that is technically illegal, Elizabeth, you're going to put your money in the bank. No, not if it's illegal. You're not. If you're putting your money in the bank and it's a federally illegal substance, what can the feds do to your money? They can seize it. So as a result, we've got a cash-only economy where people are probably keeping two sets of books and probably not paying all the taxes that they're earning. So my point on this is, it's something also that could be beneficial to governments from a tax basis as well. So I agree. I think it's something we should consider. Excellent, excellent question. All right, guys, but let's look at this chart and let's go through this whole thing together. Strategy, our company, our reason for existing is at the top of the pyramid. That's going to drive how we recruit people, how we set our human resource policy, how we select people to be able to be a part of our company. We're going to be looking at where we think we're headed in terms of the people that we think we're going to need. Are we going to need to hire externally or internally? Are we going to promote people? We might not have enough people internally. We may be lacking the skill sets internally to promote internal candidates. If we are looking at that, all of a sudden we're comparing external and internal candidates, which are better for our growth. If we have a surplus of people, we got to get rid of them. For example, we got to lay people off. maybe encourage retirement, maybe terminate people. If we have a shortage, we got to hire. What this describes is the entire process of human resource management, kind of in a nutshell. But let's talk a little bit about this, guys. Let's say you are recruiting. Well, somebody over here, we're going to start on this side of the room today. What's one advantage of promoting somebody internally as opposed to hiring an external candidate? What might be an advantage? You have the opportunity of taking somebody inside your company and giving them a bump, allowing them to move up in your organization instead of recruiting externally. What might be a good part? Yeah, they're known quantity. These are people that we know. What might be another advantage over here, guys? We already know the person. What might be an advantage?
The person knows the company.
The person knows the company. Very good. Now we're going to stick on this side of the room. What might be a disadvantage? If we have a possibility of hiring for a new position, Joe, what might be a disadvantage of promoting somebody internally? Exactly right. We have stale ideas. We may have people who are not going to make change happen in the company because they've gotten too comfortable. So those are some of the advantages and disadvantages of going internal or external. But we're going to recruit all the time, guys. You got to recruit the right person to do the job. In the old days, we had traditional ways we recruited. Yes, we put ads in newspapers, and we did in-person job fairs and all these things. Now we're getting into social media recruiting, and it makes all kinds of sense. You guys want to know why I make you have a LinkedIn page? This is why, guys. Here's another thing that's pretty interesting. There's been some research done about the power of networking. Of all the jobs that exist, what percentage of jobs never get advertised? Meaning, somebody meets somebody and hires them. What percentage of jobs are never advertised? Out of 100, take a guess. So we got a guess for 5, we got 15, go higher.
30.
Go higher. 48, pretty close. It's about 50%. What does that mean, guys? It means, oh, I did an internship. Why would somebody want you to do an internship? Well, you get experience out of it. You know what the company gets? They get to know who you are. They get to understand you. A lot of people get hired out of internships. A lot of people get hired from taking some time to get to know somebody. The very fact that we've got things like social media, for example, means you have an opportunity to connect with people who could do things for your career. And that's exactly how this stuff works, guys. And right now, we like to say that we're in a recovery mode. Before the great pandemic of 2020, 2021, which we're still in, hopefully out of soon, guys, the unemployment rate going into the pandemic in the United States was less than 4%. We refer to that, write this term down. We refer to that term as full employment. That means basically anybody who wants a job could have one. In the worst parts of the pandemic, anybody know how bad did our unemployment rate get? Anybody keep a tab on that? It was bad. It wasn't quite that high, but it was like 12 to 14%, which is high enough. That's bad. Guys, anytime there's a high unemployment rate and people are having a hard time getting a job, that means it's an employer's market. The employer has the leverage. If there's a low unemployment rate and they're running out of people to hire, it's an employee's market. If we get back to it, right now we're about, for white-collar workers, right around 6%. Not bad. I predict, this is my prediction, guys, in the 3 years that you guys have left here in school, for most of you, by the time you get out, it's going to be an employee's market again. And that means you're going to have leverage in the marketplace. I think that's a good thing to look forward to. But the unemployment rate is not the whole story. The unemployment rate means the percentage of people who are trying to get a job who cannot get a job. The labor force participation rate is the entire percentage of the country who could work and choose to work. Will somebody Google this for me? Actually, well, you're right in front of me. Will you Google this for me? And that is the United States labor force participation rate. See what the Department of Labor comes back at.
Got the numbers for 2020.
2020 is fine.
About 61% of the American population eligible to work participated in the job market.
So we got 60% of the population, essentially, who is choosing to participate as workers. And out of those, right now, about 6% of those people cannot find jobs. What that means, guys, is when the unemployment rate goes down, we run out of people to hire, all of a sudden employers are saying, how do we get that remaining 40% back in the workplace? All of a sudden we see recruiting, for example, for people who are incarcerated. We see people trying to refer to what we, get to what we refer as second chance populations. And we're running out of people, and so we tend to get more people a chance. How does this whole process work, guys? There's steps. I love how our text illustrates them. That's steps. It's like a stairway to heaven, right here. Stairway to Heaven, or Led Zeppelin, classic tune. There's some background singing in that song. If you ever get a chance to listen to it backwards, you get a strange message. So we do our initial screening. In other words, somebody's going to file an application. They're telling us they're ready to get a job. Then we're going to go through employment testing. We might have somebody, for example, show us how many words per minute they can type. Then we're going to have an interview. And our interviews these days might be over Zoom, or you might have multiple interviews. Then we're going to do a background check and see that you are good to go. And then we're going to get into a physical examination, if it's required for your job. If, for example, there was no physical required for my job because, technically speaking, I'm not doing pull-ups or lifting things while I'm instructing. If I were a state police officer, that would make sense. And then there's the decision to hire. Now, here's the trick. Generally speaking, guys, drug testing, where does it fall in this series of events? You have to receive a conditional offer of employment. Write this down. You got to receive a conditional offer of employment before somebody can make you take a pee test. If somebody says your first interview through the door, pee in a cup, they're probably breaking the law. You're only allowed to have a drug test upon a conditional offer of employment. That's a big difference in the United States. All right, my prediction, I predict that when we get to about 10 years from now, I think it's going to take about 10 years. I think we're going to see the feds making a decision to legalize cannabis at the federal level. I've been wrong before, I'll be wrong again, but yes. And sometimes, guys, our text gives some good examples of typical interview questions. And this is one for, I know some of you in my class are also in my Core 113 class. Guys, there are certain questions you can always expect to get asked at an interview. Actually, let's find out what you think. What are questions that you should always be ready to answer at an interview? Exactly right. And isn't that always the catch-22 question? Tell me your greatest weakness. Like, what's the right way to answer that question? Like, let's say, for example, Parker's interviewing me. Ask me that question.
What's your greatest?
I like to show up late. I sometimes pick my teeth. My wife says I have pretty bad hygiene. Hair growing out of my ears happens when you hit your 40s. Those are all pretty weak states for me. How does that rank as an answer?
Pretty low.
That's a pretty bad answer. Ask me the question again.
What's your greatest weakness?
Well, I tend to overcommit to companies. I tend to not know when to stop working for the day. When I get into a project, it's really hard for me to quit. And so I gave you the right answer to that question. But that is a question you're likely to get asked. And so you need to have an answer for it. It's a great example. What's another question you can most certainly expect to get asked on an interview? What's something somebody's definitely likely to ask? What do you think? What are you going to get asked on a job? That's the hardest question in the world, isn't it? My Core 113 folks, I won't put them on the spot, but they know how to answer that question. Have an answer for that question, guys. If somebody asks you, tell me a little bit about yourself, how would you answer that question? Could you do it in 30 seconds? Could you do an elevator pitch for yourself? Think about that. What are other questions you're likely to be asked? We're getting into the stuff now called situational interview. For example, I might say, hey, Greg, can you tell me about a time when you failed and what you learned? I'm not asking you to do that right now. But I'm saying that's a question you might get. Or can you tell me a time when you had to prioritize and multitask? Can you tell me about what you would do in this situation? We get into all kinds of situational questions. They want to know how you think. A good interviewer, for example, is not going to ask you about a lot of things on your resume. You know why? Because they can read your resume. They're going to ask you specific aspects of that. You might have an average interviewer who's not good with that stuff, but if you have a professional interviewer, they're going to get right to the meat of it. Well, this gets us into our next section, which is training and development. Guys, on-the-job training. It means you're going to learn by doing. We're going to have you come in and work a shift. You're going to learn and get oriented into the company by doing stuff on the job. Then we also have something called job rotation, and that means we're going to put you in every job in our department so you have an opportunity to experience all these different jobs. Why is that a good thing? Well, number one, you're building redundancy, and you're also seeing what somebody's naturally good at. Apprenticeships are a great idea, too. Apprenticeships at the trade level is the same thing you would do in an internship. You're learning how to do something by studying with somebody who's a master at it. We see this in carpentry and electrical trades, for example, and then we get into mentoring. When you get into a new company, I'll give you an example. When I transitioned from industry into education, I had a faculty mentor. This person was somebody who I met with about once a month, who would go through how I was doing my job, give me advice, tell me how to navigate the academic environment, explain this stuff to me. And that's mentoring. That's why it's so important. And then we get into off-the-job training, which means we might actually send somebody to a training center, have them do things like computer simulations to see. In fact, that's a big thing these days. Guys, even for HR people, it's a big thing. When we think about all the things that somebody working in HR might have to do, think about this, guys. If you were a manager, what is something you would absolutely dread having to do?
Fire somebody.
Exactly right. And so there's actually computer simulations where you can repeatedly learn how to fire somebody. So you can get good at it. I know that sounds terrible, but you can get good at it so that you're not taking it personal, because sometimes in any kind of management, you've got to do things that aren't necessarily fun or good for you as a person. So when we think about training, actually, I'm going to pause for 1 second, guys. I want to reiterate something. When you get out of school, when you finish your time at St. Francis, you're going to have an excellent degree. When you finish your time here, hopefully you've done an internship. You may even have some experience. You've already got experience working a job, for example. If you had a part-time job, those are all good things. But people still are fearful that they're going to enter the workplace and not have what employers want. Let me put your mind at ease a little bit. Almost every employer in 2021 realizes when they hire you, they're going to have to train you too. They're going to have to indoctrinate you to the company culture. They're going to have to show you the systems here. Guys, I work as an academic advisor, and I'm still learning things 7 years into the game. So we got to train people on this stuff, and that means companies are willing to invest in you. We start off maybe with a needs assessment. Where does this person fall short, or where does this department fall short? And what's our objective? Well, we want to train Tonkin so that he's better off as an advisor, so he knows how to better use the systems here. So we'll design a training program for that individual so we can meet the needs that they have in the workplace. Then we're going to actually conduct the training. We're going to give this person training, and we're going to evaluate it. All this stuff, again, is cyclical, so we can see, are we investing training in the right place? Are we doing the right things? How well is this stuff working out? And then we get into, this is going to be our last subject for the day, because we're going to stop for 1 second. Guys, in terms of performance planning and evaluation, let me ask you this. Why do we tell employees how they're doing? Why do we assess them? Why might you want to spend some time telling somebody what they're doing right or wrong?
So they know that if they're doing something right, they can keep doing it. If they're doing something wrong, they can fix it.
Exactly right. We're maintaining the good, correcting the bad. There are reasons for the employee. We do a performance assessment. Like Greg got an excellent performance assessment. He and I both work in the same company. Greg got a great performance assessment. Mine's lousy. Jiraiya's our manager. Who's getting the raise? So Greg performs well. I'm a lousy employee. You're our manager. Who's getting the raise? Greg's getting the raise. And Greg, you got a substantial raise. You got a $2 an hour raise compared to me. How do you feel about it? Yeah, absolutely. You see me coming in late and leaving early. So we send a message that performance matters at our company. That's a big part of the deal. So we compare performance and our expectations of performance with what somebody actually did. And if we're a well-run company, it will have consequences. Either punishment or development for the person who isn't performing, rewards for the person who is. Other things could be on the line too. What about promotions? What about making training available to people who want it? What about people who want to go between jobs? All this stuff is part of the deal. There's one other component. We hired 10 new people, and none of them are performing well. Even though we thought we hired quality people, what could be the problems? Joe, what could be a problem? We've hired 10 new people and none of them performing well, even though their resumes were killer. What might be a problem? Yeah, maybe our training sucks. Maybe our selection criteria is no good. Maybe we're not motivating those folks. Maybe we put them in the wrong place. Job assessment and performance evaluation both play a role in that assessment. Well, that being said, guys, that is a good start into this chapter. Now, on Wednesday, we're going to be doing our second exam in here. A couple of points about the exam before you leave. Number one, I sent the study guide out last week. Please study it. Anything we talked about in class is fair game, which means they'll show up a lot as bonus questions. There will be several bonus questions. So please make an attempt. Are there questions about the exam before I let you go? All right, study hard. See you Wednesday.